Hello, traders. I guess I'm all official now that I have my little intro video going on. Um, but anyway, I want to make a video just telling you guys a little more about myself. I think it's important that you know who's on the other end of the screen, so to speak, and just tell you a little bit about me and my background when it comes to trading. So I have a pretty interesting story of how I got into options. I think you guys may like to hear. Uh, So, first of all, there's a picture of me that was taken a couple years ago. My name's Mark Kroner. I'm originally from Mississippi, if you can't tell by the accent, but I've lived in Atlanta now for about 16 years. Went to school for industrial engineering. Right now, my current job that I've been doing for the last 15 years or so is as a supply chain consultant. So it keeps me on the road a good bit. I'm obviously not traveling now due to the shelter in place, but typically I'm on the road a good bit when I'm working. Trading experience, I've been trading about 22 years. I started right before the dot-com burst, dot-com bubble. So I mainly trade stocks and options, but I have traded Forex and futures a little bit. I day traded futures for probably about 6 months just to try to see how I could do at it, and then obviously was not successful, being as it lasted just 6 months. But stocks and options I've been doing for the full 22 years. And so I thought I would tell you kind of how I got into options. It's a pretty funny story. So I in spring of '98 I was a junior in college, and I heard an ad on the radio about investing in the stock market. And I can remember it just like it was yesterday. I was riding in the car with my college roommate at the time, and the ad says something to the effect of, "Would you like to learn how to double your money every month in the stock market?" And I knew absolutely nothing about the stock market, had no clue how it worked or how to even go about investing, but I was all about learning how to double my money. So I bought the course that they were advertising. It was $40, and it was a VHS tape and two cassette tapes. So that just tells you how long ago this was. So I bought the course, and I opened an online brokerage account with the help of my dad. They wouldn't even let me open one up because I was 19, 20 years old at the time. So I could not open one up in my own name. So I had to do it in my dad's name, and I deposited about $2,000 that I'd saved up from an engineering internship. And so the crazy part of the story is, in less than a year, my account had grown to $500,000, which is still hard for me to believe. So here I am, a college student, you know, living off ramen noodles, hardly any money, and now I've got $500,000 in a brokerage account in less than a year. So you can imagine that, I had a ton of family and friends who were hitting me up, wanting me to teach them how to trade. And again, at the time I thought I was an expert, but in hindsight, I definitely was not, because then I was only just buying calls is pretty much all I was doing, and that's really what the videos were teaching. What was unique about the strategy, though, was buying calls on stock splits. So back in the late '90s, stocks were splitting almost on a daily basis. It's almost like you have earnings season now every 3 months. Well, there was stock split season where it seemed like every few days these big tech companies were splitting. Some companies would split multiple times in the year. So what I was doing was buying calls the day before the split, and once the stock would split, it would attract a whole bunch of buyers that would drive the stock price up in just a matter of days. So I would put in, let's say $1,000 into a call option that would do a split, and within a few days, that 1,000 may turn into 5,000. And then the next trade, I would put the full 5,000 in and maybe turn that into 10 or 15,000. So that's how I grew it quickly, as I was going all in every single time. At one point in time, I actually put $250,000 into one option trade for a split, and that's how I got to the $500,000. So it was an awesome time. It was a great run, but unfortunately, A few months later, I lost it all. I put all 500,000 into one company. It was Network Solutions, ticker symbol NSOL, and yeah, it split and then just kept dropping and dropping, and I kept holding on, hoping that it would eventually recover, and it did not. So I ended up losing my entire account. And unfortunately, at that time, too, I probably had 15, 20 family members and friends that were following my trades and doing everything I did. And of course, the majority of them lost money as well. Of course, no one near as much as I did. I think one of my friends maybe lost 40,000 that he had made off of 1,000 or something like that. So, but yeah, it's just thought I'd share that with you. That's kind of how I got started in the options. And then after that, I continued trying to chase that same success by buying those call options, which wasn't so much splits anymore because the splits kind of died down after the dot-com bubble. But I was still buying calls, buying some puts, trying to make money on the buying side, and I could never replicate that same level of success. I'd have some good months, but eventually I'd end up losing all the money because of when you buy options, if you're wrong, you could potentially lose the entire amount. And so I would say it was probably 2014 is when I switched to selling options, and it was kind of a trial and error period for me then. I learned a lot over the last few years, trying different strategies. I tried, selling strangles. I've done spreads. I've done iron condors. So, it took me a few years to kind of find my niche and get to where, probably 2016 is really when I started focusing on selling puts, and that has definitely been, more consistent for me as far as being able to have profitable years. So, anyway, that's just kind of a quick story. If you're interested in actually seeing the VHS tape that I bought, you can go on YouTube. I found that it's actually out there. It's called Dynamic Dollars, and it was a guy by the name of Wade Cook who produced the video. He actually ended up going to prison a few years after that due to tax evasion, I think it was. But anyway, if you're curious just to see what it was, the whole video is pretty much about covered calls and then doing the buying calls on stock splits. And then lastly, I put a few of my hobbies up here. I think, there's other things that we maybe can connect on besides options if anyone is interested in similar things. So like, I play a few instruments. I'll play the guitar, piano, drums. I do a little bit of acting. I'm also an amateur magician. I used to compete in memory competitions. Yes, that actually exists. I'll show you a little bit about that here in a second. And then I do some martial arts. I've been doing that off and on since I was a teenager. So here's just a few pictures for some of the acting stuff I've done. I use the term acting loosely because most of this was just me being an extra. So I was in a movie with Kevin Costner a few years ago, and actually I did have a speaking role in that movie. I got to say 2 words. And you can see that's a shot from the movie. I'm the bailiff in a courtroom. I was in another TV show where I was a magician, so I actually got to use some of my magician skills and levitate a card in that episode. The show is Cobra Kai, for any of you Karate Kid fans out there. They made a TV show out of it, kind of as a spinoff a couple years ago. And then I was in an episode of How I Met Your Mother, so I got to meet the cast, which was pretty cool. And you can see there's kind of a screenshot from the scene I was in. I'm just sitting at a table behind the actress that plays Robin. And then I was on an episode of Ozark here recently, the last season of Ozark. It's kind of hard to see me, but I'm walking past a window in the last episode of the show. So there's a lot of shows and movies filmed in Atlanta. So when I have time, I'll try to go out for an audition or something like that, just something fun to do on the side. And then I mentioned the memory competition. So I actually was interviewed by the Wall Street Journal back in 2007. So unfortunately, I was not interviewed because of my option prowess at the time. It was because of this memory competition. But they actually have a USA Memory Championship that's held every year. It used to be held in New York. Now they hold it in various locations. So that was my first year of competing, and I finished in 20th place. So I was ranked 20th in the nation at the time. So if you have a subscription to Wall Street Journal, you can go out and search for that article name. It was a day to remember for America's mental athletes, and you can read the article. It's kind of funny. There's an embarrassing moment there with some of the questions that the reporter asked me. So anyway, that's a little bit about me. If you guys have any similar interests, it'd be cool to connect. And if you have any questions about any of the content here, just let me know. Thanks.